Hello everyone and welcome back to another analysis video. We're doing two this week and we're going back to MPL Philippines because I put out a post earlier in the day saying that sadly I won't be able to release the weekly recap video that I do for MPL PH called Hot Summer this week, mainly because I got sick on the day that I had to work on the bulk of it, and since I lost that day of progress, I really wouldn't be able to catch up with the editing so that it's proper, it's clean, and it looks good. So to make it up to you, we're gonna be looking at another match. This time it's Team Liquid Philippines and Omega, and let's start it off right away by talking about the elephant in the room. And I'm not talking about myself, I'm talking about the Hanabi. Now, I did not hate this pick, although I disliked it, mainly because if you look at the lineup of Team Liquid Philippines, that is a lot of dive to pressure the formation of Omega in a lineup that doesn't actually have what we would think of as a typical hard tank. What they do have is some great crowd control to initiate and maybe provide some spacing. You have the Fredrin, yes, but that's your jungler. You don't want him fronting as much. Essentially, he's gonna do his best to not die. So that puts the pressure onto the Khalid, which after the Raging Sandstorm, after Desert Tornado, what's next? He kneels on the floor, starts praying, and then he heals through it while providing a slow. Okay, Sora, alright. Sora could be the guy that could be the one to provide the space and the crowd control needed so that the Hanabi is free to hit. But you have heroes that don't care about any of your formation. The Claude from Teddy that will most likely be packing a Purify can easily just access the Hanabi, burn out the AGs and any shields that she has so that the Leomord will finish it off, and if it's within range, maybe the Eve. Also, look at the Eve. The Eve is going to be applying a lot of pressure towards the front line of Omega, as Omega, if they want to do a front-to-back composition with the Hanabi as the main centerpiece of damage that you are fronting for, front to back, Hanabi's in the back, you know, just tossing her shurikens or whatnot, and then the other members of Omega are the ones blocking for her, well, the Eve will apply a lot of pressure towards that front line. So, one saving grace that the Omega lineup has is that they have a Valentina that can take the real world manipulation. Also, okay, think about it, that will also apply the pressure on the Phoveus, the Hylos, and the Leomord to make sure that their engagements are proper so that they don't get caught in the real world manipulation of the Valentina stolen away from the Eve. And hypothetically, they might even just get caught by like a huge like Higanbana and then even the Sora. So you see the saving grace factor in the Valentina. But then if you really think about it, and as we saw in a lot of these team fights, most of the time the formation of Omega just ran through. Liquid did not care. It might have been different if Omega were a little bit closer in the gold, but then Liquid, after some great early game handling by Omega, they started getting all the turtles. And by they, I mean Carl Tizzy. Carl Tizzy secured all the turtles and all the one or two lords that we saw in this game. It was all Carl Tizzy. Now, one thing that I didn't expect, that we have to give credit to Netsky to this. You won't see it a lot in game because most of the time you have to really look at the minimap and the health bars on the sides to see how he's doing. Netsky actually did a fantastic job in the laning against Teddy. A lot of the times early on, it was actually Teddy getting forced back under tower. Netsky would be able to freeze him out a little bit, but not too much. Of course, you're a Hanabi, you're gonna want to be as aggressive as much as you can and then back off immediately because you don't have that dash. You do have the crowd control immunity, but still you don't want to bank on that from being able to go all the way from the Claude's tower to your tower when you're being aggressive. But Netsky did a great job of handling Teddy in lane and actually getting farm much faster compared to the Claude. The thing is, sadly, despite all of the nice control that the Omega Romid trio got to do, it was just negated by the fact that Carl Tizzy got turtles and Carl Tizzy was getting way more farm faster than the Fredrin. That's another pain point for this draft, is if Fredrin falls behind in farm, you are relying on the Sora and Khalid to front. But Sora also has to think about the lane against the Phoveus, which is why we talk sometimes about that factor of having too much pressure onto a pick in the draft. Sometimes it'd be the pressure on the Fredrin to be as a frontliner because Perk Ziva, he's maybe trying to peel the opposing back line, trying to peel them away, applying the pressure there. So does that mean that the Sora then now has to front alongside the Fredrin, so that the Valentina with an RWM steal, and of course with the Hanabi being beside them, Fredrin has to front, but then the Fredrin also has to think about the objectives. How then are you going to fare against a lineup that can really just crash dive on you so that your dash will be negated? As we saw a lot of times in the game, the dash the Fredrin had would just get body blocked and Ryzen wouldn't be able to get away. So I'm not saying that this was a bad draft for Omega, but you can see the problems already even before heading into the game. Liquid decided to go for the Stampede. It's the double horse. And as we've seen in the past, with Hylos and Leomord together, in team fights, they really do break through formations very quickly. So maybe there's something I would have changed, knowing that the Hylos is going to come out. You'd want to revitalize Roamer. I know the Kali can heal himself, but the value of the revitalize is big. This is why you'd want to consider putting things like either the Kalea or the Gatatkacha here to match that healing factor. With the Kalea, okay, maybe a little bit more control, but then who really are you gonna jump on? Claude has a Purify. If you decide to jump on the Eve will just be able to Purify or RWM. So maybe the Gatatkacha would have been better, because with all of this dive, a taunt would have been perfect. And as we've seen in the past, Gatatkacha is actually great against lineups that want to dive and get close, because there's hella value in the taunt that he has with the Unbreakable Will, and most importantly, the fact that when he's fighting against heroes that are in his face, he can extend team fights with his passive, with the enhanced basic attack regen that he's getting. So if there's one thing I would have changed, it would have been the Gatatkacha. Now, we have to acknowledge though, if this was the Gatatkacha, then that means Omega might not have been able to get the river control that they had at the beginning of the game. During the interview heading into this game, Perk Ziva said, "I think I still got a lot of the stock knowledge from the early game rotations of Liquid that we can apply in this match. I will give this to Omega." Perk Ziva and Omega actually showed that off. Not only in game 1, but in game 2, they had some great rotations that stopped the early aggressive things that Liquid wanted to do. Liquid needed to sacrifice themselves to get the early game turtles and sacrifice some river control so that they have some semblance of control in their own side of the jungle, so that Karl TZ is unbothered. So have to credit Omega for that in this 2-game series, which eventually ended up becoming somewhat of like a stomp series. They handled the first 4 to 5 minutes pretty damn well. It was really just the objective taking of Karl TZ that was the difference maker here in game number 1. And speaking of, let's head into game number 1. Alright, so we're just gonna head straight into the game, and you'll be able to hear our voices in the cast as I speak. Hopefully it's not too distracted. At the start, Sanji takes a lot of damage. Of course, Valentina and Khalid together in the center of the map are really good with applying a lot of pressure against the opposing Roman trio, Roman duo, because of the great amount of damage that they can do. Also note that Neski is packing Pull Yourself Together here alongside Sanji on the Eve, also with Pull Yourself Together, because of a lot of the dive that Omega has also in their kit. Instead of the Purify, he decided to pack the Flicker so that he can reposition himself much better. Flicker out, reposition, pop the RWM, or pop the RWM when you get dived on. If it gets taken out much earlier, then you're gonna flicker out, maybe once your shield is gone. While for Netsky, of course, with AGs being such an integral part of his combo, he would burn AGs a lot during the laning phase to put a lot of pressure onto Teddy, hence why Teddy got pressured. Only one packing Purify in this game is actually Teddy on this Claude, which is good for him considering that his dive is integral to the success of Team Liquid Philippines. So early on, expect that Perk Ziva and Mingwin might be able to control the center of the map a little bit better. You're not seeing it just yet now, but then you're gonna see eventually Teddy going back to lane or going back to base a little bit more compared to Neski's Hanabi. Sanji still continuing to feel the damage output of the Valentina and the Khalid together. So now we go here into the gold lane. You see, again, a lot of pressure onto Teddy because Netsky isn't shy about using the AGs. He was able to build an early advantage for himself through that. And he was also hitting his second skill a lot more often. If you look at the life bars right now, and we see as we transfer to the gold lane, Teddy pressure back into lane. So this is what I was saying earlier in the draft, that Netsky handled the laning very well. So JP takes a bit of a damage from Mingwin as he is now trying to zone out the Valentina during the mid-clearing phase. He's willing to take some damage so that Sanji is a little bit safer in terms of taking the farm in the mid. So that's one thing that to note for roamers. If ever you can, if ever so you still have your battle spell to survive, provide space for your mid laner like that by pushing into the opposing mid laner if their poke is really annoying, so that your own mid laner can poke minion waves a little bit better. So we go into the first turtle, and then I want you to watch not this Perxivo Sanji dive, but watch Ryzen. How difficult it is gonna be for him to actually get into the box of the turtle as Sanford and JP sacrifice themselves to just full dive onto the Fredrin. Ryzen is brought really low. Double kill there for Mingwin to start, but in the end, Liquid will be able to get this turtle. That's a small win for Omega. The fact that they're able to get a double kill for their Valentina, a little bit quicker on the resources, but Carl TZ gets the turtle. And so far, we're not seeing disruption by the Omega side in the jungle of Liquid. Liquid haven't been able to control the river as much, but their jungle is relatively undisturbed compared to what Omega wants it to be. So Carl TZ is now level 6, Ryzen at this point is now level 5, and you're gonna continue seeing this struggle to get farm. So Ryzen gets what he can. He goes into the lizard, he goes to the purple side, good read of rotations to see he'll be able to get that lizard away, but there's still that EXP gap between him and the Leomord, while, as we've been pointing out a lot, Teddy is still somewhat struggling against the Hanabi in lane. So yeah, me and Leo just decided to mess with Brigida a little bit there. I don't know what Leo was trying to do, but once I decided that, okay, it was shenanigans to just have a little bit of a banter fun with Brigida, I decided to hop on. So that's something that a little casting trick. A lot of the times where we mess around, it's a lot of improv, a lot of improvisation. Oh, good dive here at the center. So this is why you see now the value of the Valentina getting those 2 early kills, that they could be aggressive like that. Sanji got caught out. They know that he doesn't have the Purify, and instead of forcing out the flicker, Sanji just accepted his fate and knew that he probably just gonna get taken out there. He could have had a moment to flicker away, but he decided, nah, better not, so that you don't get to waste it. So it's a War Axe rush for the Sora heading into the first turtle, while the Phoveus is gonna go for the pants, building more defense here. Also building the tough boots to help with all of the control abilities. JP decided to rush tough boots as well. Went for the elegant gem. Still no first item yet for the Leomord. The Leomord is getting XP, but in terms of the numbers and the farm, Ryzen just has a slight advantage there. Already up to the Dreadnought armor. Believe he's gonna go for Radiant next, of course, because of the presence of the Eve. And then a lot of tough boots here because there's a lot of control abilities, especially the stun, those little knockups that the Phoveus can do. You can reduce their time by just a little bit. So Liquid are going to start off this turtle. Mingwin already has a glowing wand here. Ryzen is level 7. Carl TZ is level 7 as well. So this looks like a good start for Omega as they get to force JP back. But now, with the Phantom Steed out and then Sanji with his own real-world manipulation, as Mingwin doesn't have an RWM, he didn't get to get vision on Sanji. Look how Carl TZ and JP are just jumping on to Ryzen. This also could have gone Omega's way. We acknowledge that. But with this much pressure on the Fredrin to stop him from getting here, and now under the RWM, it's like a crunch time call for Ryzen whether or not he wants to stay around here and do his best so that he can retribution the turtle away, or will he somehow try to find an angle to get out of here so that he isn't eating up the RWM? Because if he falls down here, and there are members of Omega who aren't going to be there to defend the jungle, that could be another lizard taken away, this crab. before Carl TZ goes back into getting his purple buff. They'll probably get the Little Wanderer too once it spawns. So there's a lot of pressure onto Ryzen now. It's crunch time. It's like, what do I do? So he decides to commit and hold, but Carl TZ just straight up wins the retri battle as Ryzen was not even able to pop his own retribution as well. So despite James coming in there with the damage, they take the Fredrin out. Sanford goes forward to pressure out the Raging Sandstorm from Perkziva, and that's another turtle win for TLPH, and once again a slight lead for Carl TZ in terms of the EXP. Now it's Liquid who can play a little bit more aggressive and pressure. It's also good that I need to see if Teddy joined that fight. No, Teddy just came in for the double laning in mid. So one thing I have to go back to that I actually pointed out in the cast is this. We go back into the laning phase a little bit. Sanji gets caught there. They're man marking Carl TZ. There we go. So James popped his ultimate actually to duel out with Sanford better. He was hoping, despite him being really low, I think he just decided, I think we just try to level this out. He commits the ultimate to try and hope that Sanford will force something. So he did force the flicker, but they're going to this slightly even. James has a little bit more health, but Sanford can still fight. James doesn't have ultimate. And this might have been a different story if James actually had his ultimate. That's something I pointed out in the broadcast. If they had that little bit more damage that the Sora had. Because of that little moment, they lost advantage in the turtle. That could have been something that they could have used. If ever, let's say, Carl TZ still got the turtle. If James still had ult, what if TLPH are fighting under that and then they'll take a lot of damage and then Omega might have been able to get more kills. So a very small thing that led to a big consequence. James committing his ultimate in that little trade against Sanford heading into that turtle. Going back once again to the EXP lane later, you see James still already taking a lot of damage. He's committed his ultimate. He'll be able to bring Sanford low. Mingwin's going to come here to respond. But this is going to be a feels bad moment a bit for Omega, and the fact that Sanford was still able to stay here in lane. James doesn't have the ultimate. He does have the flicker to get out, but watch, Carl TZ is now going to rotate bottom side as Mingwin had to go back to mid. That was a sign for Carl TZ to join in. James already used his flicker, and he will be able to get out with just a sliver of health. But yet again, that's pressure onto the Sora, and now the Phoveus is going to be able to leave lane. I think he's either going to go to mid or join up for the next turtle after this minion wave clear. So leading into this, Netsky has gotten a good amount of farm. He's gotten progress on the tower, but Teddy, because of the turtles that Team Liquid Philippines have been getting, is advantaged or has a lead in the EXP. So there's a big fight breaking out. There's multiple fights breaking out. You see Sanford just dives onto the Fredrin in the back line to pressure him really quick. And then now that's free hits for the Hanabi. Netsky threw out his ultimate. Unfortunately, did not land on anyone. Carl TZ gets the turtle as Horizon was not able to win the retri battle because he is a level down compared to Carl. If I'm not mistaken, it was actually a very early retri for Horizon. I think he tried to retri first skill to win it. 7-12. Horizon committed his retribution already. Carl TZ doesn't have his. Easy retri there for Carl. Looks like he didn't have his first kill. Dash out. Here comes the Stampede. And with that, Liquid have effectively taken control of the game already. After that turtle, after that moment, it was just a continuous TLPH ride. Ryzen tries to survive, but look, Netsky, despite being able to get some good farm, still doesn't really feel like he has the impact that you'd want the marksman to have in terms of damage. Teddy gets to break the tower in mid, so Omega lose their mid tower, which is bad for them. 2-level gap already for the Leomord over the Fredrin. In one fell swoop, Liquid have just taken like total control once that mid tower goes down. So you saw here early on with some of the rotations, Omega really were controlling the river, but they beyond a few kills here and there, they really couldn't get that big win that they were looking for, that big lead that they were looking for. The 3 kills they got, it was the double kill for Mingwin, and then the singular kill when they decided to commit 3-on-1 to jump Sanji before Turtle 2, but Sanji still got back in time, and Team Liquid Philippines still ended up getting Turtle 2. Again, that Turtle 2, if James didn't commit his ultimate there in lane, might have been a different story, but no point crying over spilled milk. Omega now, though, are trying to recover. The problem is, one of their main recovery is through winning objective fights. But when your Fredrin and your jungler is now three levels behind the opposing jungler, every objective fight is going to be really, really tough. Solo, bro, GOAT things. He's level 13. James is level 11. He knows the limits of the trade as well. Brings out Phantom Steed. Gets to sidestep a few things. He'll be able to... He'll take the brunt of the damage, but that, again, Lame Ward's tanky at that point. He can tower dive. He has Killing Spree. Easy win there for Carl. GOAT things is what I said. Liquid is gonna push a tower up top, and yeah, the remainder of the game. Oh, this one though. This was a good rotation and read by Mingwin. Because when that little thing started, Mingwin was actually close to the bottom lane. Instead of running to where Carl was, he went to an area that he thought Carl would go through. Found him, terrified him, RWM, took down the Leomord. So that was a good read by the captain, and honestly, Mingwin, he's growing to be my favorite player already in Omega. I don't make a lot of jokes about Neski being my favorite. He's my favorite because I love his personality. I love how he understands you need to have a certain ego if you want to excel in the stage. He shared a really good thing about how he grew up in the slums or in the hood of the Philippines, where you needed to have an ego if you wanted to survive. He brings that out in the competition, and you can't knock a guy for having that kind of ego because he knows how important it is to have in a competitive setting. In this Lord, it's going to be advantage for Liquid. 1.5, Teddy's level 12, Neski's level 11. He will have his AGs here. James doesn't have the flicker, he has the ultimate. Same level as the Phoveus, he has the Queen's Wings. But Carl TZ is level 14, Ryzen is level 12. Ryzen gets dived on, Perxiva, James zoned out. Ryzen gets close, immobilized, big Higanbana by the Hanabi, but look, barely any damage. Teddy with a Blazing Duet, Raging Sandstorm, and it's Carl TZ who gets the Lord. I mean, he has the gap. Ryzen trying. Carl TZ's retro on time, Ryzen's was just a bit late. See here. Bring out the arrows. Carl, Ryzen doesn't have his retry off cooldown. On cooldown, Carl TZ has this, meaning he used his first and it was just on time. Perxiva gets punished, double kill. The Sanford Phoveus was also like a big problem. He didn't full build Dominance Ice. He went into Black Ice and Black Ice Shield and then Chastise, which would piss off the Hanabi even more. So Carl TZ gets Lord, Perxiva gets dived on. Mingwin, flicker. Mingwin is so good, man. He gets punished there, but they take out the Eve. Ryzen tried to join into fight. Netsky, under tower. Netsky finish him. Wiped out. Feels bad for Omega. They handled a lot of things really well, but ultimately, it's Liquid Stampede, man. We're gonna fast forward and skim through the game because a lot of this is just Liquid controlling. See, they're taking objectives, controlling the river. Omega are not getting resources. Ryzen is still level 13. He hasn't even maxed out yet. He'll be able to get his purple buff, but that's a free Lord for Liquid, no contest. Netsky will peel off in the bottom. So I think the hope here for Omega was to see like, hey, what if Liquid actually doesn't back off? But it's Liquid. They have enough experience of doing this against their opponents that they know that they should definitely go back and defend. What's unfortunate here for Netsky is you can see the theory that he survived this relatively well or pretty long against these two, but he still would get taken out. And without the Hanabi, without a lot of the damage, it would be Omega losing this game. Team Liquid Philippines will coast it through. Let's go on over to game number 2. So for this game number 2 draft, I like how ever since the inclusion of Teddy in the lineup, Liquid are so shamelessly just going for the Claude. No matter what side they are in, they know he is a specialist. So they pick up the Claude and they just build around that. And I think that offers a lot of flexibility for Liquid because look at this. They go for the Valentina Omega first pick. Makes sense. No problems with that. They get their comfort pick in the Claude, and instantly, because of all the dashes that the Valentina has, and knowing the pool that you have potentially in the jungle, and the tendencies of Omega of what they most likely pick, the Phoveus would actually be really good. An offensive tool, there's a lot of dashes available. It's a good time to actually pack the Phoveus. So they go for the Phoveus Cloud first 2 picks. Rare, but I think this is something that we might need to watch out more. That might show up, considering a lot of the other EXP laner options have shifted somewhat. Now though, Omega also get their comforts. They get Perkziva on a Kalea, pick-off style, good vision, alright. Minguin also had a great game with the Valentina, so alongside it being just a really good pick, it makes sense for wanting to pick it up. And then they go ahead and pick up the carry, so that they go for the Kalea carry combination. You need someone that can burst down whoever the Kalea catches. Again, carry with the ultimate is burst type. The response by Liquid and JP is to go for the Gatot Kacha. They already know who their mid is going to be, but again, this is what I was saying earlier in the draft. With a lot of the dive and the close to mid-range nature of the lineups of Omega, you want the taunt of the Gatot Kacha to come through, and you go for the heal. So instead of going for the high loss, they're not thinking about playing the front to back. The slow would have been really great as well, but I think they were also thinking that this might come through instead of banning it out, because they knew going up against Ryzen they had to commit this. The Uranus could have been a jungle flex, but also would have been a bit of a menace to deal with in the EXP because of what's left for them. There's no more Eve. They probably knew that most likely they were going to end up with something like the Farsa. Maybe they could have even put in the Lilia if they were feeling it. With a lot of the close to mid-range nature, the Lilia would have provided a lot of problems as well, actually, for even just the first 3 picks of Omega, because they had a lot to watch out for. Plus, you have the Black Shoes to reset a lot of the initial burst so that you waste it. But the Farsa still makes a lot of sense, because this allows you to control the center, the fast rotations, and you could reposition yourself as well with the wings by wings. And then to top it all off, they eventually close it out as well. In the 4th pick, they picked up the Guinevere of Carl Tizzy, putting that in the jungle with a lot of utility. They have a strong magic-based roam mid trio that will just continue to scale. Early on, it hurts. In the late game, it will hurt even more. That's a funny thing about Guinevere. The damage that she can do with being majority tank-based items, CDR, Queen Swings, Oracle, all that. Still, she does a disgusting amount of damage for someone with that kind of ability kit and that kind of item build. So, I am liking the lineup of Liquid a little bit more here. But do note that this Suyo, as I've said in broadcast, is busted. And Ryzen actually had a pretty good game on the Suyo, and he showed off some things that made us go, Suyo is busted. And then, of course, I also pack up with the Glue, which, despite it having a 40% win rate, it just draws a lot of gravity. Glue has one of those heroes that has just so much impact in every team fight that it really makes you think, do you have enough damage to deal with it? Is your damage profile all right? If you can't get the Glue down fast enough, will you be able to get down the other members of Omega long enough? How long is it going to be able to survive playing around the Kalea that has the heals? So yeah, watch out for the Glue. Overall, despite me liking the Liquid draft a little bit better here, the Omega draft, because of the Suyo, because of the Glue, you can make a really strong argument and case for it as being a very good one heading into it. So let's see how they executed. Okay, here we are early on in game 2. Aggressive trading yet again in the mid, as Perkziva this time has to take a lot of damage. But of course, you see there, Suyo is busted! Look at all that damage he got to do there onto JP in the pressure now they're applying onto Carl's jungle. Omega make the very right call here of continuing to go for it. Perkziva committed the flicker. Good call. But you see here the value of the taunt of the Gatot Kacha. They dive, they get taunted, and so Liquid are able to clap back. Despite that being a really good start, Bryson will still get the lead. But in the end, Liquid got the counter because that taunt and the big value of the Gatot Kacha. This is why it makes a lot of sense to pick up Gatot Kacha against compositions that love to dive. Again, the alternative is to pick up something like a high loss as well, but the taunt just controls more a lot longer, whereas the high loss crowd control is a singular stun. The glorious pathway is really good to have in team fights for your team and against the opposing team as well. But sometimes good old Gata Kacha just does so well. And I think he's also understated with how long he can survive in fights. I know the high loss can do it as well through Ring of... Is it Ring of Punishment or Ring of Order? Ring of Law and Order? Ring of Punishment. I forgot the name of the little ring that he has around him. Because that also allows him to survive long while also dealing damage. Okay, so now heading into this first turtle, Liquid will get the initial hold. Carl TZ still has to get his purple buff. Ryzen got his purple buff as well while getting some farm. Wants to build as much advantage as he could. Now Carl TZ will also be level 5 in this. This will go either way. Sanji's holding a good spot in LMB. James will get stunned off first. They force out the wings by wings. Ryzen's just waiting, but now he has to deal some damage. Lot of big crowd control here. Great immobilize. They just take all of it. Great start there for Omega. I need to see who Prexiva was able to control first. He just went straight for the Phovius into the Ryzen damage from the Suyo. Valentine as well. Migun gets his own feathered airstrike since Liquid Philippines dumped out their main control abilities first. Prexiva commits a flicker again to jump onto Carl. Great start there by Omega. So one thing that I pointed out here is that Omega were able to match the aggressive nature of Liquid. And again, this goes back to what Prexiva mentioned in the interview, that he knows some of the early game, he still remembers a lot of the early game tendencies and rotations that Liquid want to do for the early turtles. Here, they're able to show it off more and practice a little bit more. They're able to build the early lead for themselves. But as we see, as this game goes on, once you get further away from the early game, the somewhat less you feel, or okay, maybe not somewhat, but you feel the influence of the coach a little bit less. Majority, okay, maybe not majority, but looking at the first 5 minutes, early rotations and all of that, you could say that's where a lot of the weight and value of coaches come from. As the game goes on, it becomes more and more like player-based. Of course, you have to also take into account maybe the coaches most likely have taught or told some things to some players to do and watch out for in the late game. Definitely that's still there. But there's something that Wolf mentioned in his stream when we were all playing together last night. We went 6-2, by the way. Good record. But they ended up closing the night 8-2. Is that Wolf ended up saying, you can really tell with how hard a coach prepared, or the coach prepared the team based off of what they do in the early game, the first 5 minutes of the game. How sharp it is, the rotations, what they decide to trade, the very first early start, what the team gets out of that. You can tell how hard a coach prepared the team through that time window. So now, second turtle's coming up. Omega now has a 2,000 gold lead. They've held it pretty alright. Carl TZ's level 7, Ryzen's level 9. It's advantage for here. This should be turtle for Omega. Now, the thing with having the Gata Kacha, Phovius, and even the Guinevere here is that one big crowd control set, and it will be a turnaround for Liquid. So they're playing it slow. Ryzen plays back, shows himself. Sanji sees him. Feathered airstrike, forces out the dashes. But as you see, they go on Ryzen, and Team Liquid Philippines will be able to get this turtle. Ryzen gets the Ryzen gets the turtle. Liquid gets the initial set of burst. But then they get taunted. They get airborned by the Phovius. Carl TZ is just waiting for his time to jump. He won't land the jump, but he'll be able to land the jump, dash, kill onto Ryzen. Here comes Teddy as well, coming all the way from the gold lane to double. He'll clear the middle minion wave. He'll join the fight with his own blazing duet. Migun had the feathered airstrike, but now they're losing their formation as their front has been dove on. James even forced to go back despite getting a good ride onto someone. Great turn by Omega now. So they recalibrate. They understood, okay, we've lost our formation. We have to find some stability here again. We can't just keep fighting into this because Liquid have a great formation around us. You have Carl here, Sanji, Teddy are here, JP Sanford holding down the front line. And they don't have their Suyo anymore. Still recoverable. You're playing through a carry, and you still have the glue. The X Factor glue pick. James decides to flicker forward to get some catches. Another knock up there. But you see the damage coming out from Omega. Liquid have to back, and Omega have handled that beautifully. So you saw there how well Team Liquid Philippines handled that initial turtle. Yes, Omega got the turtle, but Liquid Philippines were able to take Ryzen down, which helps things equalize some things out for Carl TZ. Whoa, that's a lot of things I didn't expect to pop up there. Sorry about that. Pressed something I shouldn't have. Liquid then made the right call to keep fighting because with the Suyo gone, they know that there's an advantage, 5v4, but they are slightly low. But Teddy's in a good spot. Sanji's in a good spot as well. But Omega playing through their glue, playing through their carry, and they still had some regen as well through the Kalea. Made the right call to say, you know what? I think we could go for this. Let's smash your aggression. Something that we did in game 1, we should still keep that up in game 2, and they did. They ended up walking away with a double. It's not Renmar that got the double kill. It was James who got the double kill. They go back default. Liquid needs to get their purple buff for Carl while also managing the middle minion wave. They don't want to lose that tower. Carl jumps in, dives, will miss an initial blast. Sanji has feathered airstrike again. Wings by wings. They get forced back and Liquid are able to hold on to their tower in mid while Omega will be able to break the tower up top as Netsuki is now getting guided through Perk Ziva. So with this, as we enter the mid game, Omega have made the right moves to be able to take control and to be able to get a lead. How do they convert that into Turtle 3 and Lord 1 is going to be their next big question. Ryzen still has a gap lead over Carl TZ. So now we find ourselves in the similar situation as game number 1, but it's with Omega in control. Teddy is still able to get farm. Neski is now up to a golden staff. Mingwin has the ultimate of the Farsa. So we're just listing down some conditions you have to watch out for here. Sanji needed to be careful. He uses the feathered airstrike the moment he sees Ryzen to build some advantage. He gets a stun off. He gets 2 hits. Brings him down to 50. He'll be able to regen this or spell vamp this through the Beetle, through the Turtle. But it was still a good call for Sanji to make to try and force Ryzen down low. While Omega, they don't play static. Mingwin, so good, man. So good. Goes down bottom. Pressure's Teddy. Teddy gets taken out. First death onto the Claude. Level gap for Neski. But here comes the clapback of Sanford and the rest of Liquid. Flicker forward. Dark wave. Mingwin just gets bounced on by Sanford. Carl TZ ended up walking into what is a Blade Surge stun from Ryzen. But here comes JP with the big AOG that lands onto a lot. And watch Sanji. He is free. And JP also has a Revitalize as well to extend this fight. The value now of the Gatot Kacha, the Revitalize, playing with the Phoveus, and then of course Sanji being able to free hit there as well as he got some big stuns off. Crowd control chain, and in just with that moment, the hard work of Omega will get cancelled out. As Liquid have balanced, they've taken down 4. They'll take the tower at bot. Netsuki will take the tower in mid. What's Netsuki going to try to do? I don't remember what Netsuki actually tries to do here. Sorry, I just realized I think audio has been gone for a while. Okay. Yeah. Netsuki shouldn't have done anything there. Burst. JP brought low. Carl TZ finds a knock-up, but it's Perk Ziva. Perk Ziva tracking Teddy. Teddy doesn't have the Purify. He gets brought back. But Teddy is able to BMI out, and no member of Liquid falls as Liquid get the turtle. No, excuse me, Liquid get the Lord, not the turtle. That extended on way too long enough that it was not the turtle anymore, it was the Lord. That's why. And with Liquid getting the Lord, feels bad. Really, huge feels bad moment there for Omega. Everything was going right for them. They made the right call to go down bottom, but then Liquid just found a perfect counter with the late entry of Sanford, the eventual late entry of Sanji after the AOG of JP, the value of having the Gatot Kacha here, and again, I cannot stress this point out enough. When one of the opposing roamers is the roamer that can provide healing, you're gonna need to provide healing as well. It might change for international teams or in international tournaments, but generally in PH for the longest time, it's been that trinity of Hylos, Gatot Kacha, who have revitalized, Kalea with her own passive healing that she can dish out, and then you just trade around those three. Which is why you see in some drafts wherein if a Kalea is already picked up and there's no opposing roamer, some teams would even commit the high loss Gattacacha ban so that they wouldn't be able to match in the revitalized department. And then that's where you see other roamers show up, or different playstyles. Either they go for pick off, if the Khalid's open, they go Khalid, Hilda, Cho, things like that, because the healing revitalized roamers aren't available. And similar to what we mentioned out, when there's a lot of dive in close to mid-range for the opposing lineup, which is what Omega's lineup is built around, there's a lot of value in picking out the Gattacacha with a very strong taunt ability that isn't a crowd control committed to one, it's a crowd control committed to many if it does land. Fight suddenly breaks out here. Ooh, a lot of damage by Omega. But watch Carl. This is a turning point. Bang! Carl gets Netsky. Which is, okay. In the flip side, I understand why Netsky decided to go for a flicker. I've gone through the similar scenario in RG when I would argue with the other side I'd be playing gold, wherein there's so much crowd control that Purify makes a lot of sense. But there's so much reach and gap closing and dive that flicker would make even more sense because you need to be able to reposition. I don't think Netsky also just realized how locked the F in Carl TZ would be in making sure that he'll be able to get the knockoff on the carry. Look, you can see Carl, but if I'm Netsky, I'm just looking at Sanford trying to bring him down low. Sanford flickers away. You're trying to secure that kill. But Carl TZ's locked in and getting that knock-up onto Netsky. Over there. Crazy. And Teddy was a blazing duet. 4 down. They could build advantage. That was just a really beautiful team fight executed by Liquid. Heading into the closing moments, Divine Glaive, glowing one for Valen, Oracle Fleeting for Prexiva. So you're missing some utility there, but they do have the glowing wand. Understandable why you would want to go for the Fleeting. You're maximizing cooldown reduction, and then you want to maximize your ultimate. Force out those flickers, those purifies, force out reactions very quickly. You do have the burst and the damage to deal with it. Some of the utilities also coming through, of course, through the Radiant Armor of the Glue, the Chastised Pauldron of the Glue, because that's your main roamer. So they're essentially playing this Kalea as sort of like the support to the main roam, which is actually the Glue. That's your main frontliner. Meanwhile, for Liquid, lead, already 3 items for the Farsa, so that's a damage advantage for the mid laner. Radiant Chastise and Radiant Chastise also for the roam EXP of Liquid. So you're doing a lot to put pressure onto the magic damage getting dished out there by the Valentina, while also the damage coming out from the carry, nerfing the capability somewhat. While Carl TZ goes for the max CDR lifesteal build you go for. So this is more the offensive-minded Guinevere. These are all defensive items with offensive capabilities. Concentrated energy, that's where a lot of the magic damage from the Guinevere is coming from. But if you're thinking of these 3 items, that's defensive with either adaptive attack, cooldown reduction, attack speed increase, control time reduction as well. So it's a great build for Guinevere jungles and the usual ones that we see if it's not for the heavy utility base. You get another big knock up here from Carl. Conceal up. Entry. Oh, is this the one where Liquid might have just dived a little bit too deep? Teddy with a blazing duet. With a nature. JP jumped in, but he's gonna get taken out. Pop the immortality because he didn't get the jump off. It was a punish. Okay, it's a good punish by Omega. They get 2 kills for Ryzen and they get something out of it. 5,000 is the gold lead though of Liquid still. They're still within realm of turnaround, so now they're just playing for map control. So with this kind of gap, Omega definitely have a chance to turn things around with the fight. 4,000, 5,000 at this point. You have good farm on your gold laner. Your gold laner's max level. You're just trying to catch up items on maybe your EXP, roamer, and mid. But with your main carries in the jungle and gold having items, you definitely have the chance to turn this fight around. Omega made a conceal play here, thinking that this is where Liquid will be. I don't think they matched or was able to track the time with the orange buff properly. But I think they were just hoping that someone on the Liquid side would actually cross there. And now fight will break off. Liquid with their own conceal. James will get caught. They blast down the glue. No more main roamer. Suyo far away. James gets taken out. And with that, that's advantage for this Lord. They're forced to give it. What a read by Liquid. What a mystery by Omega as well, that it's the glue that falls down. Lord coming in. Sanji, feathered airstrike. Build advantage. Force back the members of Omega. You have minions. JP goes in. AOG gets forced out. Tight formation for Omega to clear the Lord. Liquid will still have minions. They clear out just a bit of the jungle. Allow the minions to come through. Hold the orange side. See if they can catch anyone. But Sanji showing himself means that James needed to check that bush. Now they have control in purple. They get the purple buff away from Ryzen. I think they just leave the little baby camp there so that they're forced to clear it. And that the cooldown, the respawn for the purple buff is going to be much longer. Minion waves still keep crashing in. You see though, but during this time, Omega are still getting items. They're still getting farm. So they are catching up. James, so much damage he has to take as this glue. But it's just expected. Pick off roam, your EXP becomes the roamer. So let's watch how they position and play this dance. Perxiva far side, but this. I called it right there in the cast.
Yeah. Okay.
There, I said perfect spot for Sanji. And I don't think Omega just respected the range here.
Yeah.
They didn't expect that Sanji and Sanford are already going to be here.
Okay.
Great positioning. Netsky committed the dash to go through the wall. Sanford had the information. Feathered airstrike. Sanford flickered dark wave. They all dive onto the carry. Netsky gets taken out. And Liquid will be able to win it. That was just perfect dance. Perfect positioning. Omega not taking care of the fact that Liquid might already be holding this. Perxiva would have seen the beetle go here. So Netsky passing through there was a decision of all time. Double kill for Sanford. Liquid don't even need to get the Lord. Oh no, they eventually need to get the Lord. Sanji, feathered wings by wings. Get out of the map. Get close. Reposition. But it gets blasted down by Ryzen. Suyo is busted, folks. Good clear. Good defense. Liquid will get the Lord. Or comes marching in. JP just commits the AOG right away. Good read by JP. He gets stunned. Jumped on. He'll get bursted. Immortality pop. But at this point, Neske has already used his ultimate. So the time of that is much shorter. Sanford with the dives. Another feathered airstrike by Sanji. Zone out. Oh, Liquid. Oh yeah, Liquid get to defend this. I'm forgetting how long this game actually ended up being. Yeah, Omega were actually able to hold on. And stretch out. They force a play. Perxiva. Pass JP. James. Good zone out. But JP jumps back. AOG gone. Reset. And I think this is the fight that actually won the game for Liquid. James got onto Sanji. Sanji forced back. James brought really low. Ryzen goes forward. Tries to fight. There's still Dark Wave. Blazing Duet. Neski with the Wind of Nature. But you see how slow the damage is of the carry because he doesn't have the ultimate anymore. He gets knocked up. Double kill there for Teddy. Buy for an immortality of Teddy. And then, oh yeah, it's the minions that end this game. So during the interview, even Liquid mentioned that they didn't realize that the minions were already there until like super late into the fight. And I think that means that Omega also didn't realize it as well. And I think I was making a point that what they should have done is that with the threat of the minion wave in the bottom lane, after James was left in the back, Ryzen and the rest here should have just backed off. This means that no one was looking on the side of Omega respecting this wave, hence why they got split push. Bang, 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 bang. and then minions win the game. That's it for the second analysis video of the week. Lots of learnings. I think Omega, honestly, Omega, I like their early to mid set sometimes. But it's once it gets into the mid game and then the late game, that's where you see a lot of the what ifs, the things that they could have adjusted. Suyo still busted, Liquid are really good, great recovery. It's in a lot of these Lord fights that you see a lot of the experience of Liquid shine through and come through. So yeah, that's it. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one, and I'll see you in this weekend of MPL Philippines Season 17. It's week 4. We're in week 4, right? Yeah, we're week 4, and I'm casting Friday, Saturday. See you guys. Bye-bye.